If you mix together Luigi's Mansion with an old CD player, then you basically get Blinx if you try to explain it in the worst or also best way possible. I actually knew nothing about Blinx before playing it. I always just saw it as some kind of failed try for Microsoft to make their own big jump in one series, and I paid zero attention to it because it got fairly middling reviews and looked like the typical edgy type of platformer to me, and because I never had an Xbox as a kid. I was totally wrong about that. Blinx is, well, he doesn't really have much of a personality, at least in the first game. I thought he's gonna drop some cool one-liners and have a radical attitude. Instead I got a tame cat, which I'm perfectly fine with. I even prefer it. Imagine if Mario talked about his favorite pizza toppings whenever he jumped. It would be annoying. Mine are tuna fish plus jalapenos, by the way, even if nobody asked. If you look at Blinx, he just seems like that kind of mascot, doesn't he? Look at the goggles, that smear. But wait, he was made by a Japanese developer, wasn't he? Let's take a look at the Japanese cover then. Oh, that explains a lot why I had this warped view on him. They pulled the old classic, let's make the character look more smug or badass in the Western world. Story-wise, it has a concept I just can't wrap my tiny brain around, and it almost threw me into an existential crisis. There's just thousands of those cats who handle our time and create time. How do you handle or create time? Good question, that's what I asked myself. And then the evil pigs called the TomTom Gang, note them down on the list of evil pigs in video games, even steal the time, and it made me wonder even more how that even works. The more I try to think about it, the more I just drift off into thoughts that make me think about how little we are in our big universe, but we are still worth something. Leave your legacy on the world if you can and want. Nothing you do is meaningless. It always leads to different outcomes that can shape more than you might think. The Oinkies steal time crystals, and somehow some of those crystals turn into monsters and things are looking bad. So when everyone else runs away because its situation looks too hard to handle, it's up to Blinx, who wants to be the big hero after he saw the pigs kidnapping a cute girl because he instantly fell in love with her. I hope the laws in his land don't forbid that. I also expected the game to be more gritty because I thought the game is going to be cool, in the way a 12-year-old would think something is cool. Imagine Shadow the Hedgehog but a cat. Instead I got thrown into the first world, and it reminds me of Nightmare Before Christmas or Traverse Town from Kingdom Hearts 1, full of whimsy edgy energy instead of edgy edge energy. The game just has this whole dreamlike atmosphere to me, a game that isn't real, something you would see as proof of concept instead of being an actual game. Early 3D renders that came to life with tons of charm to them. That's how I would describe it. Look at these nice caverns that ran at 5 FPS for me at points, because for some reason, if you emulate Xbox games, you need to turn off something in your Nvidia control panel off to make it run smooth. Combined with the music, which is also pretty neat, it just puts you right back into this generation of gaming and making me feel nostalgic for it, despite me never having played Blinx before. I miss that time, so full of 3D jump and runs that maybe were actually really flawed, but just had that specialness to them like Billy Hatcher. In that sense, it really reminded me of Wario World, where every world is just totally different and nothing ever blends together, except that here, most of the same enemies appear in most worlds, which is a bit sad, especially since their designs are a bit lame. You have hopping slime balls, clown-like dudes that stand on a ball and throw trash at you, seahorses that turn into tornadoes, and it all makes you wonder, where are the pigs? I want to fight against the evil pigs so I can put more evil pigs on the list of evil pigs in video games. They do actually show up sometimes around tons of gold to annoy you, but you don't even have to defeat them. They don't count towards the goal. Because the goal of every stage is to kill every monster, and then the teleporter opens up so you can get to the next stage. Most levels are fairly linear because of that, with some exceptions though, like this tower level where it felt a bit more open where I can go first and in what combination I want to get rid of the monsters. In the others you are on the set path basically and have to make sure you won't miss anything, or else you gotta backtrack to find that one little enemy you didn't get. You kill the enemies by sucking up trash with your vacuum cleaner and then shoot it at the monsters who have health bars you gotta empty out. Normal stuff, except that some enemies have tons of health. Oh no, how do you deal with those? By sucking up bigger things like a car, because those do more damage. If you had to choose to get hit by a trash can or by a car, you would obviously use the trash can because that would hurt, but not as much as a car at least. So the bigger the trash, the more damage it does, but to do that you also need to buy a bigger vacuum cleaner at the store. But you don't only fight, since you also have to do puzzles sometimes, even though calling them puzzles is kinda an insult to puzzles. You got time powers, 5 of them, backwards, forwards, pause, record, and slow, and they do mostly what you would expect them to do. With the backwards power, the world around you goes backwards, which you can use to restore something that broke, like a platform. Forwards time, and you go fast and can't be hit really. Pause pauses it. Record records you for a short amount of time to act as a double for you, and slow slows everything down, like when you want to get past a big X swinging around, and you can just slow it down to make it easier. With powers like these, your brain would think, wow, there's some potential to do crazy puzzles with them, but that's not really the case, except for maybe the record button, where it feels they actually tried to come up with clever uses for it. Like here, where you gotta use it to stand on a switch with your double and activate 2 switches at once. Simple but neat. Or here, you use your double on a seesaw to jump higher. The pause button mostly gets used to get through doors that have spikes in them, because otherwise you can't get through, or you can use it to pause the enemies to easily hit them, but it's kinda boring because you have to wait for the pause to end and you can't hit an enemy twice with it. You gotta wait till you can hit them again, so now you just stand around doing nothing. There was one puzzle that made me think, yay, I would have liked more of these. Here in the canyon stage there's falling minecarts, and at first I thought I had to ride one of them to jump off of it to get on these tracks, but that's impossible. So I was wondering, what do I do? And then my brain worked my little brain cells to its maximum output and realized I have to jump onto a minecart and turn back time so it moves me over to this platform. This was the one and only puzzle in the game that required me to use my brain. To refill these powers though, you gotta collect these symbols, but it's frustrating. You need to collect 3 or 4 of the same. If you collect 4 of it, you get 2 of them, instead of just 1 if you collect 3 of the right symbols and 1 of the wrong symbols. If you pick up 2 symbols and then mess up by picking up 2 other symbols, then you get nothing. It's way too hard sometimes to pick up the symbols you actually want at points. Enemies explode with a random mix of them, so you have to stay away or else you pick up a symbol you don't want to. And even then they sometimes just stick super glowy together, so if you want to pick up one certain picky uppy, you can't. Because if you do, you will pick up one you don't want. You can try to suck it out of the group, but most of the time you will fail, most likely. And sometimes you already have 2 of the same and see 3 others lined up that you now want, but you can't get those because you already stuff with the other 2, so now you have to find one that fits those, or just discard all of them by picking up 2 wrong ones so you can get the other 3. This could have been easily avoidable if they gave you more control over these symbols. Allow me to discard some of them by myself with a button so I can sort them better. That's how easy it would have been. It would have fixed the whole system basically. I know, sometimes mechanics like these can make a game really unique and give it its own flavor, but what if that mechanic just kinda sucks? Why not have a normal meter? It's way more generic, but it would have solved so many problems being able to use any ability you want, whenever you want, as long as you are filled up and make the meter recharge itself or something. It removes the puzzle aspect of making sure to only get the ones you need and want, but after a while it just became so annoying and even made me fear I'm gonna get stuck at the end of a level because I'm gonna miss a pause to get through a door because I didn't know I need a pause and there's no pauses to be found anywhere anymore, so I wasted 8 minutes of my life. At one point I messed up my record and there were no more record symbols to be found, so I had to restart the stage. It was one of the early ones, so I only wasted 2 minutes, but still, it just doesn't feel right that you can fail because you don't know and can't know what you're gonna need next on your first try. And at first you only have 4 powers saved up before you buy upgrades to keep more of them and make sure you always have at least 2 of each if needed. It's a bit like Sonic, where you don't fully get the level when you play it for the first time, but after you beat it, you know now what's gonna come around this corner and that corner, so you can prepare yourself and do it better, if you're the kind of person who enjoys replaying stages. They also have secret cat medals for you to find, but all you get are these silly little scenes that just make you wonder why. That's what I get to see when I find secrets. Makes me not want to find them actually. Towards the end of the game, I just couldn't handle it anymore, especially the ice world. Yep, that's really fun, sliding around while trying to pick up things precisely and getting attacked by enemies at the same time, and then accidentally picking up the wrong symbol so you won't get the backward stuff you need to make the ice come back, and now there's a pretty much impossible jump for you that you can't do anymore, so you better restart the level. 5 enemies in a tiny room that almost gives you no room to move around in, but you don't want to use your paws or slow on it, because what if you need it right after and they won't drop the symbols you need and you get stuck? The game won't even allow you to shoot through open doors, just an invisible wall for you to shoot against. I thought I was smart when I had the idea to shoot a bomb into a room like this, and then the shop system is also kinda weird. Every world has its own version of it with new stuff to buy, and mostly you would wanna buy time holders and retry holders. Retry holders are your health, because every time you get hit, the time gets rewinded to give you a retry to do it better this time, but obviously you still lose the health. Sometimes though I would fall off a cliff and it would make me respawn in the air where I have no control and just fall again, so I lose 2 health because of this. Would it have been too hard to program to make you rewind till you're onto solid ground? Please? So in the shop you also have this very cute cat, but when you buy an upgrade for your vacuum cleaner to suck in something bigger, you keep it, but only if you never buy something else. Some vacuum cleaners let you suck in fire that enemies can shoot at you. In any other game you can just switch around between each cleaner that you need for different purposes, but here you lose it. I would have to buy the vacuum cleaner that sucks in big things again, wasting my gold on something I already bought. So I don't even want these other ones that can shoot ice or fire, because in the end the ones where you can suck up huge things with are the best anyway, since for example these fire enemies only show up like 3 times, and while they're tanky they still die to normal trash. You can buy cool outfits in the store though, same thing here too. If you want to go back to Blinx's normal outfit, I would have to spend 1000 gold again. Why can't I just keep my stuff and switch around? Then in the ice world, Blinx also falls over every 2 seconds because of the ice. Smash Boss Brawl would be jealous with how much he trips on here. Why would you do this? There is no one button in the game, you just move normally but you're not allowed to. I would get it if you tried to run, if a one button would exist, because running on ice is dangerous, but I'm just trying to move as if that already isn't hard enough by itself when you keep sliding. It just made me kinda sad, because it was such a good field jump in one game that I had more and more fun with when it clicked, but then towards the later stages it just became more like doing the laundry. You have to do it, but you don't want to do it, so you force yourself to do it, and it makes your mood drop lower and lower till you never want to see Blinx's face again. I enjoyed my time with it, but then all the flaws became way too much of a problem when the game tries to be harder and harder. In the easier and earlier stages you can kinda ignore the problems, because the game isn't trying to murder you at every corner of the game. What killed me here? An invisible enemy just standing there, totally out of place. It doesn't help that you can't truly aim and items fly as if they're on rails. It's just rigid and not fluid at all. And every shot can count in certain stages, because there's not enough stuff to shoot if you spam it like a dummy and miss over and over. Luckily some enemies do spawn their own trash so you can shoot at them, but sometimes there's no one around like that, so you're just screwed. The ice world just multiplied everything I dislike about the game by 10 and made me actively dislike it, because the flaws just become too strong. Don't even get me started on the boss of the ice world, where it feels the game lies to itself. The boss breaks some of the platforms so they sink lower and lower till you can't use them anymore, and if you try to use the backwards button on them they just stay broken. You get them back for 2 seconds and they just sink again. It's just a tiny nitpick that made me think, come on, let me do that. They could have had something really fun here if they just fixed some of the problems. Don't put 5 enemies into a tiny room. Rework the time crystal stuff so you would have more control over what you pick up. Simple things like that. It's like how a relationship ends eventually. At the start you fall in love, learning more and more about how much you love each other, but eventually the cracks start to show and you two can't go on anymore because the flaws are too glaring, and you decide to end it for the better. When I had enough, I just thought, yep, I've seen enough. You can call this a skill issue or whatever, but for me I had enough to be able to judge the game. I did all normal stages except for the final boss and the last boss of the last world, because I ran out of patience. I closed the game and looked up what else was gonna come up afterwards and saw, yep, I made a good decision to quit, because there was a boss rush coming up next before the final boss, where you have to fight 4 bosses again that you already fought. If you die, you have to do it again. Except that you can cheese it by restarting the stage before you die and then have to fight the boss you were on again, instead of having to do it all over again. You can't truly defend this. It merely exists to annoy you and make you waste your time beating the bosses over again. If you die once, back to the start you go. Here's the kicker. I would say this is a bad thing even in a game where the bosses are fun. Imagine if you had to fight all the Koopalings again before you get to Bowser in a Mario game, even though the Koopalings are not fun fights, but you get what I mean. How about you beat all the bosses that drop a grand rune in Elden Ring again, in a row without being allowed to die once? Are those 20 minutes to make your game look longer worth it? That's what I always wondered when games pull this stuff. It doesn't really fill me with accomplishment except for rare cases like the Mega Man games where you can quickly get done with it and feel powerful because now you're all powered up and know how to put those robots into the trash with 4 shots when you know what's wrong against who. Even then it's more of a, oh yeah, time to battle against all of them again. Yeah, kind of moment. In the end, I can say I had my fun with it, but at the same time, it just had too many flaws that can't be ignored. Maybe they fixed them in Blinx 2, which I will surely play one day too to see what they learned from this one. Hopefully they did learn something. It feels like one of those games where if you play it for the first time ever nowadays as an adult, it's hard to not see these problems. But if you had this game as a kid, you did not see these problems as too problematic and still had the time of your life with it and now have fond memories of it. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and won't judge me too harshly for not actually beating it, or maybe you should, so please insult me. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, or anything good that fits your time zone. Bye bye.